the squint, the poncho, the .44 Magnum. For over 6 decades, Clint Eastwood has been the face of American masculinity. The cowboy, the cop, the director who defined what it means to be a man on screen. But the man behind the legend? He's not what you think. Because Clint Eastwood, the ultimate symbol of the American West, doesn't have a drop of Western frontier blood in his veins. Welcome to Famous Roots, where we conduct DNA audits on America's most iconic figures. Today, we're uncovering the hidden ancestry of Clint Eastwood, and what we found rewrites everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's last cowboy. If you're fascinated by the hidden bloodlines behind Hollywood legends, subscribe to Famous Roots right now. We publish DNA investigations every week. Hit that bell. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. Clint Eastwood Jr. was born May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, California, right into the teeth of the Great Depression. His father, Clinton Sr., was a salesman and factory worker who moved the family constantly, chasing jobs across California. But here's where the Eastwood story gets interesting. Clint's mother, Ruth Wood, came from a family that had been in America for generations. Not cowboys, not ranchers, factory workers, laborers, people grinding out survival in industrial towns. Our DNA audit reveals that the Eastwood surname traces back to England, specifically Lancashire and Yorkshire in northern England. The name itself means eastern wood or eastern forest, suggesting ancestors who lived near or worked in wooded areas. Clint's paternal ancestors were English immigrants who arrived in America in the early 1800s, not on the frontier, but in the industrial Midwest. They settled in Illinois and Michigan, working in factories, mills, and farms. No gunfighters, no outlaws. Just working-class English immigrants building lives in manufacturing towns. But Clint's maternal side, the Wood family, tells an even more complex story. Ruth Wood's ancestry traces back to Scottish and Irish immigrants who came to America in the mid-1700s and early 1800s. Our research reveals Scottish Lowlands ancestry on his mother's side, Presbyterians from the border regions between Scotland and England. These weren't Highland warriors. They were farmers, weavers, and tradesmen fleeing economic hardship and religious persecution. The Wood family migrated from Pennsylvania through Ohio and into Illinois, following the industrial expansion of the 19th century. They worked in textile mills. They farmed small plots. They survived economic panics and depressions. And there's Irish blood, too. DNA analysis shows markers consistent with Irish ancestry, likely from Ruth Wood's grandmother's line. These were Scots-Irish Protestants, the same stock that settled Appalachia. But Clint's branch went north to the factory towns instead. But here's where Clint Eastwood's DNA reveals something unexpected: a significant percentage of Dutch ancestry. Genealogical records show that one of Clint's great-great-grandmothers was of Dutch descent. Her family had been in New York since the 1600s, when it was still called New Amsterdam. These were Dutch Reformed Church members, farmers, and merchants who predated the American Revolution. This Dutch lineage is crucial because it means Clint Eastwood's American roots run deeper than most people realize. While his English, Scottish, and Irish ancestors arrived in the 1700s and 1800s, his Dutch line had been in America for over 300 years. These Dutch ancestors weren't wealthy patrons. They were tenant farmers working land owned by the Dutch patroon system. Hard people. Stubborn people. Survivors who weathered British conquest, the Revolutionary War, and westward expansion. But genetics alone don't make Clint Eastwood. His childhood during the Great Depression shaped the man as much as his DNA. Clinton Sr. moved the family constantly. Piedmont, Oakland, Sacramento, Pacific Palisades. Clint attended 8 different schools before high school. His father worked in factories, sold bonds, did whatever kept food on the table. This wasn't cowboy country. This was industrial, working-class California, and the Eastwood family genetic heritage, English factory workers, Scottish mill hands, Dutch tenant farmers, was perfectly suited for this grinding, unstable existence. Clint worked summer jobs: lifeguard, paper carrier, grocery clerk, forest firefighter. His DNA didn't carry aristocratic entitlement. It carried the working-class Protestant work ethic, Scottish Presbyterian discipline, English stoicism, Dutch stubbornness. After high school, Eastwood was drafted into the Army during the Korean War. He worked as a lifeguard and swimming instructor at Fort Ord in California. Never saw combat. When he was discharged in 1953, he enrolled in Los Angeles City College to study business. But then came the pivot. A chance encounter got him a screen test at Universal Studios. And suddenly, this 6'4" son of English factory workers and Scottish mill hands was standing in front of cameras. Universal signed him for $75 a week. But here's the thing. Clint Eastwood didn't fit the mold. He wasn't classically trained like Marlon Brando. He didn't have the pedigree of William Holden. He was a working-class kid who mumbled, squinted, and moved like someone uncomfortable in his own skin. And that's exactly what made him perfect for the Westerns. Because Clint Eastwood's DNA, generations of silent, stubborn, hard-working English, Scottish, Irish, and Dutch ancestors, gave him something Hollywood couldn't teach: authenticity. In 1964, Italian director Sergio Leone cast Eastwood in A Fistful of Dollars. The man with no name was born, and with him, a new kind of Western hero, not noble, not eloquent, just hard and silent and surviving. John Wayne represented the myth of the American West, larger than life, morally certain, aristocratic in bearing. But Clint Eastwood represented the reality, the man who endures, who doesn't waste words, who survives not through nobility, but through stubbornness. And that stoicism, that emotional reserve, that's not acting training. That's genetic inheritance. Northern European Protestant culture, English, Scottish, Dutch, valued restraint, self-reliance, and quiet endurance. Clint Eastwood didn't have to fake those qualities. They were written in his DNA. The squint wasn't a character choice. It was Clint being Clint, a man whose ancestors survived English factories, Scottish famines, Dutch winters, and the Great Depression by keeping their heads down and their mouths shut. But Clint Eastwood didn't just act. He became one of the greatest directors in American cinema. Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, American Sniper, films that examine violence, aging, regret, and redemption. And here's where his working-class DNA becomes crucial. Eastwood's ancestors weren't artists or intellectuals. They were craftsmen. English mill workers didn't theorize. They built. Scottish weavers didn't philosophize. They created. Dutch farmers didn't debate. They worked. Eastwood directs the same way his ancestors worked. Efficiently, without drama, one take if possible. No method acting workshops. No elaborate rehearsals. Just show up, do the work, go home. That working-class Protestant ethic, inherited from generations of English, Scottish, Irish, and Dutch laborers, made him the most efficient director in Hollywood. His films come in on time and under budget, because in his DNA, wasting time is wasting money, and his ancestors couldn't afford to waste either. So here's the irony. Clint Eastwood, the man who defined the American West on screen, has zero Western frontier ancestry. No cowboys, no gunslingers, no pioneers crossing the plains. His English ancestors went to Illinois factories. His Scottish ancestors went to Pennsylvania mills. His Irish line settled in Ohio. His Dutch ancestors stayed in New York for 2 centuries. None of them ever rode a horse through Monument Valley. And maybe that's why Eastwood's westerns feel different. Unforgiven isn't about glory, it's about the cost. The outlaw Josie Wales isn't about heroism, it's about survival. His films deconstruct the Western myth because his DNA never believed in it. He's 94 years old now, still directing, still working. And that relentless work ethic? That's not Hollywood. That's English factory discipline, Scottish Presbyterian duty, Dutch farmer stubbornness, Irish immigrant hunger. Clint Eastwood became the American West's greatest mythmaker without having an ounce of Western blood. He embodied masculinity not through swagger, but through silence inherited from Protestant ancestors who survived by keeping quiet and working hard. His DNA didn't make him a cowboy, it made him a craftsman. And he used that craftsman's discipline, English, Scottish, Irish, Dutch, to build a career that redefined American cinema. The man with no name had a bloodline after all. It just wasn't the one we expected. If this DNA investigation fascinated you, subscribe to Famous Roots for more ancestry audits on Hollywood's biggest legends. We're uncovering the bloodlines behind the icons, 1 star at a time. Thanks for watching. And remember, the myths we believe are often more powerful than the truths we inherit.